Yo, my name is Big Lou, and you are now listening to Go Produce. We're the show that explores how music industry professionals turn their passions into profit. In this episode, we've got Nygel Asselin, a stellar songwriter, a productive producer, and a friendly face who knows. Simply said. The Go Produce focus of this episode is, how do you build a career as a producer within the music industry? If you can appreciate the required hustle to build brick by brick, then this episode is for you. Okay. Thank you, Nygel, for being here. I want to let you know that we do very much appreciate your time. So why don't we go ahead and go produce? Listeners, let me tell you who we've got here for you today. Nygel, he learned the ropes as an assistant engineer / producer for Garth Richardson. Eventually, he moved on to become Garth's studio partner, studio manager, and head engineer at the Farm Studios. Nygel now operates his own recording facility, NYG Productions. As an award-winning producer, engineer, and mixer, Nygel has worked with many successful artists, most notably co-producing and engineering Half Moon Run's debut album, Dark Eyes, which was certified platinum in the fall of 2016. As an accomplished songwriter, his songs have been placed on such shows such as Mary Kills People, Scream, Teen Mom, iZombie, XFactor DR, Heartbeat, Saving Hope, The Fosters, and Degrassi, Next Class. Nygel Asselin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Ooh, we are very happy to have you here. Clear round of applause. Boom, boom.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how we feel.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful. All right, so we're going to go right into our first segment of the show. The first segment of the show is called The Basics. I love that sound. Nygel, in The Basics, what we're going to do is we're going to run through some simple questions so that we can get to know you a little bit better. We want our listeners to become, more personable with you. We can make that happen?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So my first question is, what is your first musical memory?
My first musical memory is, I guess as a kid, I had this, my parents got me this little recorder or a little cassette recorder that had a microphone attached to it. And you could just turn the radio on and go around and sing. So I'd wander around the house carrying this thing around and singing. And yeah, I'd say that's my first musical memory. Then from there, it was a quick little, one of the SK50 Casio keyboards where you could sample yourself burping and then spread that out across the keyboard.
Ooh, look,
so yeah,
nice.
those are probably my earliest ones, like finding music and really liking it.
So you creating sound, essentially.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Just through burping. I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, but I am curious. Did the device back then record, or was it just like a microphone that you held for show?
I have the device here.
No.
I found it. I can show you. Give me a sec.
Wow. This is an antique. And he'll never know.
So I actually have both of the devices, and these aren't the originals. I found these through Value Village years later.
Wow.
But it's this Fisher-Price little thing here. I can't power it on because it's got no batteries right now, but the idea is you tune in a radio station and then you sing and it blasts your voice out the speaker, which was super fun.
Wild.
And
that
it's from
would have been a rad toy back then, hey?
Yeah, I think it's from like the 1984. So yeah.
A little bit older than I am.
Yeah, I was born in 83, so it came out when I was 1.
Oh,
and
wow.
then this is the realistic version, but the Casio is the same thing where you just sample and you can actually key map it out. So yeah, my first couple musical things, and I managed to find them, 35 years later in a Value Village, and I was like, I gotta have these for the studio. So yeah,
I knew asking this question would be worth it. Can you tell us what led to you becoming assistant engineer / producer for Garth Richardson? There's a second part, but first that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it all started, I went to music industry arts in London, Ontario at Fanshawe College. I ended up there after going through college for something else and not really enjoying it and realizing that I really wanted to do music. So I was like, I'm going to go back to school at 24 to take another program, and being one of the older students there, I was just really motivated to make my second run through college a little bit more productive than my first run, which was probably just a lot of drinking and not being productive. So my goal then was trying to figure out what I was going to do and who I was going to work for. And Garth Richardson actually came through our school and did a guest lecture. I then convinced one of my teachers, who was his friend, to let me chat with him like afterwards and try and secure an internship. And I reached out to him, and he was like, yeah, for sure. Let me know when you're in Vancouver, and I'll put you to work for sure. And Garth had a history of interns not surviving. So every year someone from Fanshawe would go out there, and every year, 2 weeks later, they would come back and not be able to hack it. And so it had been 10 years since he really kept anyone. And I liked my odds, 1 in 10 could be, a decent odds of success. And so then I kept in touch with him through my final year of Fanshawe. And when I reached out to him, probably about like March of 2009, when I would be almost graduating, I was like, hey, I'm going to come to Van. I'm going to do it. Like, I still want to make sure that there's some work there for me. And he's like, actually, no, I got nothing for you. And so all of a sudden my plans, like a month before graduating, of moving to British Columbia were
gone,
destroyed. It wasn't going to happen. So I looked at my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, hey, do you still want to do this? Do you want to move across the country and me try and find a studio job? You try and find a job in music publishing. Do you still want to do it? And we're like, yeah, let's do it. And we still had the goals of me finding a way to work for Garth and her finding a way to work at Network, which is a record label and publishing company here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So fast forward, we drove across the country anyways, packed up everything we had, spent all the money we had to get a place out here, paid astronomical rents just to get in. And then 2 weeks later, one of my old classmates hit me up and said, hey, Garth's online on Facebook. You should message him and see if, I'm like, well, he already told me no. I'm like, I'll try. So I shoot him a message. I'm like, hey, do you need anyone? I'm still here. I'm like, I'm here. I'm ready to work. And he's like, again, let me know when you're in Vancouver. I'm like, I'm here now. Like it was June 15th. And I was like, I'm here. He's like, hey, come in tomorrow. And then that was my first day in 2009. And I started cleaning toilets. And just showed up every day. I always answered my phone was the big thing. When I went in that first day, they're like, always answer your phone. Oh, so they took my phone number and they called me 2 seconds later. I answered like, great, you're not fired. And so I took that to the limit, where like I shower with my phone on the back of the toilet. Anything they needed, it was like I was there. And it became to the point where I climbed up the chain pretty quick, because they could rely on me. No matter what they needed, I was there. I don't know how I paid rent. I don't know how I ate, because I worked for free. And that's how it all started. And it paid off. At the end of the day, all this and everything I'm doing now is because I took the chance and did that and was afforded that opportunity. So yeah, that's how it all started.
So essentially, reliability is the lesson here. You got to work for it. You got to prove your worth, and then
definitely
show people that they can count on you.
Yeah, for anything, like anything at all. If someone's calling you, music related or whatever job you're doing, there's a reason they're calling you. There's a reason they need you for something. And if you don't answer, they're going to find someone else that they can call that they need. And when the phone stops ringing, that's not good for you. So for me, it was like, I just made sure that always happens. And to this day, I still, Garth, and I don't work for his studio anymore, but I actually still do work for his studio. So I was just up there working on rewiring some stuff for him, reconfiguring things, planning out some other moves. And so we still have that relationship, and he'll still call me for technical stuff, which is great.
Awesome. 2 questions from that. Do you still live by that principle? Answer your phone, just boom.
Yeah, always. If someone's even to the point where it's to my detriment, where my wife's like, you don't know what that number is. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. And then a lot of times I get asked if I want to cruise or something, and I'm like, you never know. It could be a client,
lucky
right?
Number winner. What?
Exactly, yeah. Or I'm just like, whatever. For me, it's like it could be potential work, it could be a potential client, So yeah.
And then the other question that stemmed from that was, you went back to school.
Yeah.
So you were already familiar with the music industry, and you knew that's kind of where you wanted to go, but you decided that going back to school was the solution. Why?
Yeah. So when I first went to school, I went for broadcast journalism. So I was actually working in country radio when I graduated. All the things I told myself I wouldn't do. I wouldn't go back to my hometown. I wouldn't work in radio, and I wouldn't work in country radio. And then I ended up back in my hometown working in country radio. And I did that for about 4 years. And then the whole reason I got into music industry arts was just crazy in general. I had some friends at Loyalist where I went to school. And basically, one of the band members quit a band that we were kind of all in, or I was just about to join, and he left to go take this program. So quit the band and went and took music industry arts, and the band broke up. And then 4 years later, I looked it up and I applied, and it was really hard to get in. And then I got in, and I was like, hey, I got to do it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna redo. I'm gonna go drop another 25 grand. I don't have any money. I paid for it myself. And still paying for it. Almost 40 and still paying for it. So that's great.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
So nowadays you operate your own facility. Like I mentioned before, that was NYG Productions, or that is, I should say. What brought you to pursuing a business or career of your own after your start?
Well, for me, the biggest thing was like working in a big studio is great, but you're constantly having to set up and tear down because there's new clients coming in and things like that. For me, with my studio, what I really wanted was everything ready to go at any time. So you can't see all of it now, but if you look at the back piano there's 2 Crown Royal bags hanging off microphones. The microphones are pre-wired into the patch bay, and they can just be patched into mic pre's, and they're ready to go. Tape machine in the back corner, same thing. It's wired up there. On to my right, there's about 16 channels of synths, 16 or 18 channels of synths that are all hardwired with MIDI and audio into my patch bay. So I can just I can turn them all on, and I can record them all at the same time if I want. Same with my 6x10 drum room, small drum room, but it's always mic'd up. My guitar room, where I have 4 cabs that are always mic'd up with 8 microphones, and all the heads are pre-wired to that. So everything's ready to go. Vocals typically happen behind me over here, always ready to go. So if you have an idea, you can just capture it instead of like, oh, we want to do guitars now. Oh, I'm going to set up for 2 hours. Let me set up for 2 hours and remember that idea. It's going to be good when I get there. But for me, I just wanted to have a place where we could cut drums somewhere else if we need to, and then come here and do all the overdubs and just be inspired. And then also as a songwriter, I wanted a space where we could just create right away and not have to set up too much.
Very cool. So I think it's quite obvious that you've spent a lot of time on your setup and strategic positioning of them all. So that leads me to 2 questions. I want to know, do you have a team that works with you that has to maintain everything, spit and span like the way you like it?
No, I am the team.
You run the show.
I had assistants for a while, but not in this facility. I moved here about 5 years ago, and I had a studio partner at one point, but it was more just someone sharing the time. Everything here was all my gear, all my wiring and configuring. So there's times where I'll just get squirrely and I'll be like, this would be better if I did this. And then I go into like basically 48 hours of ripping everything apart, rewiring it for how I want it to be. And I think now I'm pretty good, but you look around and you add one more piece of gear and it changes everything. So, I maxed out my synths over here, and then I have 2 that are, one's in a box and one's just back from the tech, and I'm like, I have nowhere to put those. So it becomes problematic. You keep adding more gear and you're like, how am I going to expand? When am I going to just rip everything apart again? So
you got to update the customization of your room.
Yeah. And so I do it all myself because then I know how it's done and I know it's done right, and that's huge. Well, you don't want to go to something and not have it work in a clutch situation. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Yeah. I think as a summary to that, you really like the idea of being able to design your own room, which is ultimately one of the biggest reasons why you went out and started your own.
Yeah. And just also wanted a place that was consistent that I could work out of. That's a big thing, right? To always be able to show up to a place and have the same set of monitors, the same setup, and not jumping from room to room. Also budgets, budgets are a lot different than they were. So it's a lot more cost effective if we can do everything in one facility here. I'm able to work on budgets that are a little bit less, and still able to make money and still able to pay my bills and pay off all the fun toys that I turn around and buy that I shouldn't.
It is it is a business after all. I hear you.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. Right. So
yeah. Could you enlighten us on some of your achievements as an award-winning producer, engineer, and mixer?
Oh, I don't like talking about that stuff. I've done all right. I guess achievements. Half Moon Run was a big one. When that went gold, it was pretty magical. Like I never thought I'd get a gold record. Like I never thought that's, you always hope for it. And especially nowadays, it's happening a bit more now with streaming being counted, but yeah, it was pretty amazing when that went gold. And then when it went platinum, I'm blown away again. I won an award that was nominated for a few awards, Les Disques Awards in Montreal. So it was nominated for a director or a producer of the year there, and then also it was nominated for engineering with the other engineers on the record. I won a West Coast Music Award for engineering for John Bryant on his album 20 something. Yeah, so I'd say that, and then just having put in work. Having songs in film and TV is probably the most exciting thing. When like your guitar playing or things like that, you hear that, you're like, this is awesome. Or your lyrics that you've written with people, right? And you hear that and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And to see how it changes the mood of a scene, you're like, we did that. That's like a call your mom or call your, call your family and be like, check this out. Go watch the show. Like it's on there. So that's to me, those are the fun things. And when new music comes out, to me, that's the awards are great, but it's really more enjoyable to constantly have new music coming out.
Of course. It's not about the awards. It's not about the money. Like those are nice.
Yeah. Just to be making music constantly and have friends like what you're doing. You know what I mean? Or people be affected by it. Getting messages from people who are like, I really like this. As producers, we don't normally get those messages. But sometimes you do. So
interesting. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, that's the first segment. Those are our not so basic questions. I hope you're feeling good, and I hope you're feeling ready to move on, because next up, we've got our speed round. In the speed round, we're going to be throwing 20 simple questions at you. We want you to ask them answer them with one answer, or with one. Wow, this is a horrible explanation. In this speed round, we're going to throw 20 simple questions at you, and we're asking you to answer them with one word. It can be a yes, no, this, that, both, none, but don't justify it. Then you have the opportunity to do so afterwards. Capiche?
I think I got it.
Deal. Let's get her going. Work hard or play hard?
Both.
You're a self-taught musician. True or false?
True.
Would you rather hear the good news or the bad news first?
Bad news.
Name the first thing you can think of that's the color blue.
My Night Pro EQ in front of me.
Is it true that Garth Richardson has the nickname GGGarth because he has a slight stutter?
True.
True. Does hard work pay off?
Definitely.
You prefer coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Would you rather have pizza at home or in the MIDI lab?
in the MIDI lab, for sure.
Yeah. What did you do? What did you last listen to? A song or a podcast?
Song.
Can you touch your elbow with your nose?
No.
You sure?
100%.
Name the first thing you can think of that's the color red.
My ATI preamps in front of me.
Is it true that Vancouver has a tight-knit and extremely supportive local music community?
Yes.
Do you like neats or on the rocks?
Neat.
Does your birthday always happen on the same day?
No.
If you could pick just one genre of music to produce for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pop.
Do you Tell us how you really feel there. Do you prefer to be rich or successful?
Successful.
Do you prefer hot tubs or hot springs?
Hot tubs.
Hot tubs. Is it true that you co-produced and engineered Half Moon Run's debut album, Dark Eyes?
True.
Yeah. Ontario or British Columbia?
British Columbia, sorry.
I take that personally, damn. Would you rather have a rewind button or a pause button on your life?
Pause.
Pause. Okay. Now, I want to ask you, is there anything you want to clarify? That was our 20 questions.
Not that I can think of. I'm still trying to remember them all. I want to go at that grumpy sound guy, though. What's he buzzing me for?
He's getting called out. Oof. He's too nervous. Look at him. Okay, he's probably going to chime in soon.
We're concentrating on the job, man. Just let us work.
Oh, you're doing your job for once. Nice, thanks. I wanna know why you would prefer to have a pause button.
Because I mean, you can always replay things in your head and how you do them differently and go back. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like I'd rather just pause, think about what I've done that I might want to rewind and change, or slow down, and I'd rather just hit pause, rethink about the strategic move that's next, and kind of go from there. And just, I got 2 kids. I want them to slow down, spend more time with them, you know?
I can only imagine that, yeah. It'd be very weird, like an interesting concept, but a useful tool as well. I think people will get stuck. I don't know. But I think I would do the same.
I think rewind would just like you'd constantly get in that like rewind. Let me fix that like butterfly effect, right? Like you change one thing and it all changes everything. And so for me, I at times, yeah, I get hung up. I'm sure we all do on things we did or way things went down or decisions we've made. But at the end of the day, you can only move forward and try and use what you've learned in life, change it. Maybe hit pause to think about it before you say something or do something that's not the best move.
Truth. Words of wisdom. I also want to know a little bit more about the tight-knit and extremely supportive local music community in Vancouver.
Yeah, I find it to be really great. I mean, I'm blessed in the fact that I'm in a facility with probably 20 to 30 other producers and engineers.
Oh, wow.
So there's just a bunch of different rooms here, and we're all fairly tight knit. We can all lean on each other when we need something, whether it's technical support to this. Choosing a life of music isn't always stress-free. There's a lot of ups and downs. So having a tight-knit, for me, the producer and engineer community, I find to be really tight-knit. Same with the artists out here that I deal with. A lot of the times I'm working with people who are connected on their own side and not just through me. And it's interesting to find that out. So, yeah.
I really think it makes all the difference. The collaborations, the connections that you make, all of that. I mean, ultimately, why else would you do that? Yeah, personally.
Well, why else stay here? You know what I mean? And for me, it was, I worked a lot when I first got here, and it was hard to grow those friendships because you were just working every day. But through that, you find these amazing humans that are doing the same thing as you, who can, talk you through some tough times, and also and vice versa. So
yeah, it goes a long way. My last clarification for this segment is, why pop music?
I don't know. I just I have fun with it. It's really fun. It's something that I get a vocal from somebody and I can do everything else in here. And there's, I don't know.
Just
I
like a
to make
vocal
people
sample
dance.
or the whole song?
The whole song, an acapella. I can build everything around it and just have fun. Study what's happening and also just kind of put your own spin on it. And I like the challenge of making someone who hates pop music dance.
Do you like to dance?
I love to dance.
Yeah, you get jiggy with it.
I love to have a song come on that makes me move. The best is when you see someone that hates the style of music you're working on, but they're tapping their foot or they're moving and they're feeling I really like that melody. And it's
yeah, they're working away. They didn't even realize it.
Exactly. Yeah,
I got them.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. That's very cool. All right, Nygel. That brings us into our third segment of today. This segment is called What's Your Take?
All right.
Da-da-da. In this segment, we're going to ask, or I'm going to throw some different quotes, ideas, concepts, statements, whatever you want to call it, your way. And I want you to throw your opinion / perspective my way. That cool?
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Starting a business in the music industry, especially on your own, is a piece of cake.
No. I think having an idea of starting one is a piece of cake. There's a lot that goes into it. And I feel like with the way that I went about it was, just slowly kind of migrating into it while doing other things, and slowly starting my own business. But it's a lot, thinking about taxes, that alone and just managing your finances.
You got to open this account. You got to do what?
You got to reconcile this. You got to, you had a good year. And then the government's like, yo, you got to pay us.
Take the money and give it to me.
Yeah. And if you don't, so it's a lot to learn about that. And then you get into especially, whatever part of the business that you're getting into, just starting it up. It's just finding it and learning about your clientele, what your market's like, what kind of market share is available to you, right? There's a lot to kind of learn. And also in the music business, there's just so much between contracts, different agreements that you're going to be getting into. And you really have to, it's not easy. You have to lean on a lot of different people, lawyers, other people that in the industry for advice. There's just a lot that can come at you. And, for me, it's learning along the way. There was a lot of things that I would potentially do differently or handle differently, but you just kind of learn and go.
You live and you learn. Yeah. In terms of finances for the young producers out there, how did you learn the business side of your studio career?
Well, being a production assistant for production assistant and studio manager, I dealt with a lot of that stuff. So learning about shipping gear to other countries and what all goes along with that when you're traveling to do records, planning out and budgeting for the studio that I managed and knowing what we needed to bring in just to keep the lights on. Also understanding that everyone needs to get paid, assistants, everybody. So learning all that side, I learned a lot of that through managing the farm.
Okay. Do you think you would have experienced the success that you have had on your own had you not spent time learning
No.
and interning? No?
No, I don't think I would have. I have to attribute a lot to how much I learned from other people, not just Garth, but every other producer engineer that I worked for. They all were around to answer questions and kind of help me sort through a lot of things as I got my start. So yeah, I don't think I would have necessarily ended up in the same place, at all.
Is it
a lot of the? Go ahead.
Is it safe to say that interning is the way?
It's not, I wouldn't say it's the way. It comes down to how you want to go about it. Some people do really well just getting out of school and producing. Just produce nonstop. Just keep making music. And that's one way to go about it. For me, I really wanted to learn underneath other people. And so I knew that that was an approach I wanted to take. It was like, learn underneath these legends so they can teach you. You can basically get all of their ideas, all their ways of doing things, especially the more producers you work for and engineers. And then you get to take all the way they do things and combine it into the best way by amalgamating all their different ways of tuning vocals or comping or tracking drums or miking this up or that. So that's the approach I went with and just felt like interning for me was the right way. It's not for everyone. It is hard. I mean, nowadays there's no such thing as an unpaid internship. I don't think it's legal anymore. But for me, it's invaluable. At the end of the day, it didn't take long for me to start getting paid because I proved my worth and it became a necessity that I had to pay bills. So, but I went in being like, I'll work for free for as long as you need me to until I make it worthwhile for you to pay me. So
yeah, it is a sacrifice. It is a grind. And it is scary. That's for sure. But it sounds like you were playing the long game. You weren't rushing to just like, yo, I'm going to hit one crazy song. We're going to make $1 million. Then we're going to be turning up,
Still working on that. I mean, that's the goal. That's always the goal, right? And I actually tell a lot of my friends that who are just getting into writing or want to do more of that. And I just say, I'm like, we're all one song away from having the fuck you money. And that's the way.
It's true, though. And that can happen to anyone.
You can write it tomorrow. And so the more you co-write and collaborate with people, it's huge because you're going to learn something from every writing session. And then also you're just writing with more and more people that might put that music out. And you're one song away from, not having a care in the world. You know what I mean?
From eating, if you will.
From eating. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So what's your take on this? If you don't have any capital, if you don't got any food on your table, you shouldn't bother even trying to start a business in the music industry.
No, I disagree with that. I mean, you should go for it. If it's what you want to do, you'll figure it out. For me, I didn't come from money. I grew up, I spent some time in government housing. My parents didn't make a ton of money. I paid for school myself, put myself through school twice, still paying for it. But,
very nice, yeah. Good for you.
And then moved out here with a lot of help from my now wife. She was way more responsible with money than I was and managed to help us get out here. And my in-laws are amazing. Thank you guys. If you listen to this, you've helped us out a lot along the way.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to them for sure. But no, I think, you find ways. So for me, it was, while I was working for Garth, I was building my own business as a producer just by taking on projects and doing that and booking the studio that I managed to produce projects out of, while helping pay the bills there, and I also making money as a producer and engineer.
Yeah.
And then what I would do is I reinvest anything I would make from projects and music into equipment to make the next record better.
So the sacrifice continued.
It's constantly, but at the end of the day, you look around and you start adding up. You're like, actually, I got some assets now.
Damn.
I got some stuff. You know what I mean? Like when the bank's like, what do you have in assets? I'm like, it used to be like nothing. Now I'm like, I have a lot of gear. Like if someone wanted to buy it, but
still no money in the bank.
Yeah, at the end of the day, but it's like for me, I'd rather turn around and spend a bunch of the budget on something that'll make the record more fun and sound better and a different toy to play with. That artist that I'm working with is the first artist to use it and it's on their record. There's something fun about that and just like inspiring for me to have something new to play with on a record instead of just going to, oh, I'll use this piece of gear again in this because I always go to that, but get some new guitar pedal or a new synth or
You got to
a new
experiment.
guitar. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So don't be scared. Take a risk. Jump.
Take a risk. Try. Yeah. Okay. Building an empire only comes to those who work hard enough for it. What's your take?
I would say, yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't think I've built an empire, nowhere near that. But I would say, yeah, I mean, you have to work hard for anything. My take is just you have to grind. You know, sometimes there's no choice. When I started, I was putting in 18 to 20 hours a day. Some like the longest I've been awake was 72 hours straight. And so
you're working harder than I am.
But that's the grind when I got into it, and when I hit record mode, when I have a band in from out of town, I'm in it just like they are. And we'll put in 18, 20-hour days. And I'll be back the next day doing the same thing just like they are. And for me, it's like you have to grind that because it's what gets you in the moment, the kind of weird psychosis that comes from working those long hours and how you kind of like get a little loopy. You get some really great art out of that at times too.
I bet. You're also feeding off of the other people's energy, though. You're not sitting in the room by yourself for 18 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe sometimes for periods of time,
sometimes.
but like...
Yeah, editing days, yes, you're still sitting here.
Hey, that's the hustle. You're hearing this right here from Nygel. This is what you're signing up for if you're trying to build a career as a producer.
And I'm surprised you guys made it so, how late it is tonight, doing the old Eastern time to Pacific time.
We're definitely pushing bedtime here. What's your take on this, Nygel? Having worked with someone whose talents exceed your own means you're destined to their shadows.
No, I disagree with that. Because you get to not steal, but steal. You get to steal a lot of their techniques. And working with someone who's greater than you is only going to help elevate you. Because we're all individuals in what we do here. Like I'm going to do something different than that person's going to do it. Might not be the right way, but someone might like it more than they like the way that person does it. So, working with someone like working under Garth like I did was really great. The only reason I got the Half Moon Run record, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons was because of him. He was my boss. He trained me, and the band's manager at the time had done a record with Garth as the band. So at that same facility that we did it. So it was a really reassuring for the management to allow it to kind of happen. And they knew that they'd have him kind of keeping an eye on me, making sure we weren't going to make a bad record. So, so those opportunities that were afforded to me and doors that were open and connections that were made wouldn't have happened if I worked might have happened if I worked with someone that was on par with me, but working with someone that's better than you, I think is great. It challenges you to be better and to learn from them and really try and just get better.
I agree. I also find that a lot of the time, well, not a lot of the time, but there are instances where people that may be the most talented in the room will feel like, I'm wasting my time here. I don't want anything to do with those below me. And I say that loosely because I don't think anyone's below anyone else. But there are other instances where the person with more talent actually really values the input from the other artists that are around them because that can help them develop themselves even more. Do you see that at all?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Like that's why I say write with anybody. I've learned great things from people that it's their first co-write. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, and then the people that are the best in the room and they act like they're the best in the room, no offense, I don't want to write with you. That's not fun. To feel like every idea you have is gold and no one else does anything great. It's like, that's not fun. Walk into a room and create a song. At the end of the day, the best idea wins. And that's how you should work at the end of the day. So unless I'm producing and then I'm the boss. So
then your idea is the best.
Yeah, no. Even in that, but as a producer, you do have to kind of manage the expectations of the band, and you're also dealing with sometimes five ideas within the band, and you're trying to sort through what the best idea is, and also having an outside perspective and maintaining that, and not siding with someone all the time, but choosing the best move for the song. and for the production of that song.
Do you find that emotion gets carried away in these kinds of discussions?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely I'm an emotional person. I definitely have gotten a little, into it at times, especially when you're in a project for so long and you're in close quarters with people for so long. And sometimes you'll butt heads with people. And sometimes you get along really great. And sometimes you get along great for 90% of the project. And then at the end, after spending day in and day out with someone, you finally butt heads. So, emotions always run high when you're creating great art. If you're not emotional about it and you're not butting heads, then nobody cares. Like at the end of the day, it's like if someone and I are butting heads over an idea, it's because we're both passionate about it. If I'm just like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Sure, do what you want. Do you want? That's when you go into passive aggressive mode and you're just like, you give up. But I never want to get to that point. Have I gotten there? Yes. But I really don't ever want to go to that place. I always want it to be an environment where we can butt heads and it's okay. And we'll come up with a good idea. And you know what? You might not agree with every move on a record, but, as long as there's nothing on the record that is detrimental to it, then I think you're doing okay.
Right.
Hey, Nigel, who do you think is the boss in this podcast?
I think the grumpy sound guy is.
Oh, what?
You got it.
He's just staring me down right there with that dart in his mouth.
He is pretty intimidating. I don't go in that room when I don't have to, trust. That's jokes. You said passion a lot in that last question, I think, in that last statement. I want to know, there's certain points where assistant producers are ready to level up. Maybe they feel like they're showing all the passion in the world, but is there a certain time where they should actually feel that, where that feeling is deserved? To like branch out on their own even?
Well, I think you don't necessarily have to jump and branch out of your own. You can still be working for someone else, but be taking on projects where you're taking on a more lead role. And I think that's all you can do is go for it and see what happens. But you'll find quickly sometimes that you're in over your head. It's nice to be like, I want to be the producer from the creative standpoint. But when you deal with the fact that you got to deal with budgets, you got to deal with management and label and band and individual artists, and you have to be the shoulder to cry on or the disappointed dad when they're late because they're out drinking. Like, there's so much more that goes into it where you're like, you really want to produce and you're like, I can make the music great. Yes, but there's so much to it that goes beyond just the creation of music and capturing a good performance. It's also about dealing with all of the internal workings of making sure this project's on time, it's on budget, and that everybody involved is happy with the outcome. So it can be a lot of pressure at times. So I don't know that you'll necessarily get a feeling, but don't be afraid to ask for help if you find yourself in that situation and you feel like you're in over your head. But you got to just go for it, and do that. The first record I did, the first full-length record I did, was with a band, a bunch of people that I went to music industry arts with. Got that record done, and the band broke up, so that never came out. So that was my first full-length, and then the second one I jumped on was Half Moon Run, and then that went really well. So
and that went really well. So
it did really well, and it opened so many doors for me, and I'm super grateful for that project. So, but that no one gave me a tap on the shoulder and said, you're ready to do this. You just kind of had to be like putting feelers out with projects. And then, it just came back to me where it was a project that, I was asked to be a part of and I was really excited to do. So
beautiful. Beautiful. What's your take on this? We've got some producer specific questions. So this is solely for you. What is your favorite key? Musical key?
Whatever's best for the vocalist.
So it depends. Okay.
It really, really depends on the song, depends on the vocalist. I'm not like tied to a specific key.
Are you tied to a specific chord, a favorite chord that you go to innately?
Good old pop triads, maybe some sevens.
Fair. Sevens. Okay. Favorite mic?
My go-to I use a lot. I use 414 BULSs a lot. Maybe it's just because I have 4 of them, but I really like them. They have a transformer. They're the 414 that the last run that actually had transformers before they went to these digital 414s now that don't have transformers on the output. So I really like the 414s. My RCA 44 probably 1950s RCA 44 ribbon. I really like that one. It's just an awesome mic. I'm scared to use it though, so I don't want to blow it up with Phantom. But
what do you use that for?
I've used it on vocals. I use it for like a kit mic on the drums. So just kind of slightly above the kick drum and back about 3 to 4 feet pointed at the snare. And it's just a really good mono kit drum that'll capture the whole drum kit.
Very nice. Very nice. And favorite outboard gear?
Ooh. My favorite I've got so many. Probably my favorite would be my Night Pro EQ. So it's been remade by a company called Mag Audio. And it's the EQ3D. I have one of the old versions from the 90s that's not notched. It's this old blue rack piece that's right here. And it's awesome because it's got, it's just 6 different fixed frequency, or 5 fixed frequency, from sub to 40 to 160 to 650 to 2.5K. And then you have this air band that it's legendary known for, where you can switch from 2.5K all the way up to 40K, and it's just a boost. So it takes your mixes and it takes it from this and makes it sound like this. Like it just clears up the top end without adding tons of sibilance. So I really love that. It's always on my mix chain.
That's awesome.
I really love that.
Like Clarence and Clear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. just get rid of all that.
Awesome. That was magnificent. Thank you so much for all of those responses. Next up, we've got our 4th segment of this show. This segment is called a wheel challenge. I thought you liked to dance, man. What's going on here?
I saw your sound guy's really messing up. I can't hear much on my end. It's cutting in and out.
What?
Just nothing, man. You're doing a great job.
Thanks. I'm not getting fired today.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, moving on, with your permission, of course. Our next segment is a wheel challenge. And here in this segment, we're going to be spinning this wheel behind me. And depending on what, I guess, challenge pops up, we're going to do a challenge.
Okay.
Cool? Enough said.
Yeah. It better not be rigged.
It better not be rigged. No promises.
Always lands on the same one.
There's actually a weight at the bottom here.
Okay, just stops it back there. Nice. That's not very circle, eh? What was that?
Okay, so you've got the whisper challenge. You ready for that? What was that? So what the whisper challenge is I'm going to put myself on mute so you won't be able to hear me, but everyone else with the camera will be. And I'm going to be essentially whispering short popular idioms. Okay? And you have to read my lips and tell me what you think I'm saying.
All right.
Okay.
Now for us illiterate people, what's an idiom?
An idiom is just a short, catchy phrase.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And I'm gonna repeat the phrase twice, okay? So I'll say it, I'll pause, and then say it again.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't hide your mouth behind that microphone.
Oh, that's part of the game.
No,
I mean, what?
No. Okay.
All right. We're gonna start now.
Okay.
Piece of cake. Piece of cake. What you think?
Piece of tape?
Ooh, so close. So close.
I was like,
piece of cake.
Okay. That would make sense.
Yeah. Piece of tape. Okay, next up. Break a leg. Break a leg. Yeah.
Yeah, I got bring. That's
bring.
Bring it on.
Oh, very close, very close. I'll do it one more time for you.
Okay.
Break a leg.
No idea.
Nothing. Break a leg.
Nothing. Okay.
Bring it down. Bring it down.
This is not a whisper challenge. I can't hear anything. This is a lip reading challenge. You should change the name of that.
Yeah, we lied.
Okay,
we lied.
Let's do it again. All right, what do we got?
You got to redeem yourself. This is the last time.
All right. Okay.
Dime a dozen.
What the fuck?
Dime a dozen. All right. What do you think?
17 pizzas. That's the saying for sure.
I would love that, but wrong.
What did you-
Yo, actually, I said dozens and you said 17. So like those are both numbers. So that's kind of close, I guess.
all right. Yeah. What did you say?
Dime a dozen.
Oh, great. I can't read lips. So that,
Clearly not.
So note to anyone that's working with me, feel free to shit talk me in the live room with no mics on. I won't be able to understand what you're saying.
I think we may have a lot of fun with this. That's hilarious. Very good. Very good. All right, Nygel, we are now about to begin our 5th segment of the show. This segment is called Clear the Air. Whoa. I know it's a little dramatic. In this segment, I want to try and introduce this with a scary tone of voice. In this segment, that's a waste of time.
You're so serious right now.
I know,
I'm kind of intimidated.
I'm gonna change that up. I didn't like that so much. In this section, we're gonna be honest about challenges about common issues within the industry. We want you to help others become better because being not good is no bueno. Let's play on words.
That was bad.
I'm
very
only
bad.
human. I've got lots of room to grow. Let's go into the segment.
Okay.
How about that?
All right. Let's do it. Let's do it.
So the first question I've got for you here is enlighten us on the trials and tribulations of starting and maintaining your own studio. For example, specifically, is there something that we can almost expect to go wrong?
Almost everything that you need to rely on. Literally the day before the Half Moon Run record, my Mac Pro blew up. So that was great. Computer
Your
fried.
what?
Yeah. So I had to get a new computer for the studio the day before the day before that record, basically, or 2 days before that record. So, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be extra incurred costs. You don't think about insuring your gear. Something's going to break. You're going to need to fix it. So just be prepared. And for me, I just got really handy with things. So I try and fix most things myself. And I do a lot of that. If something gets really intense technical, then I'll send it off, but I'm not afraid to rip a piece of gear apart and fix it.
Get into it and understand it better.
Yeah, but that's what I'd be prepared for, is that if you're going to buy a lot of gear, things are going to break, and there's overhead with that. So just be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And quite literally, I mean, there are things that you can do to prepare yourself for your computer crashing, for example, using the cloud. But even still, you don't wake up one morning and be like, I think my computer's going to crash today, or something else that you may not think of. And that's the day it happens.
Yeah, so keep all your files in 3 different places, and not only in 3 different places, but like on 3 different drives, but in different places. So I have 2 copies of my sessions here at the studio, and then an entire backup at home always.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Even things I'm currently working on, they travel with me every day. So I have a backup in case
On your
if this
body,
place
on your
burns down.
person.
Yeah, if this place burns down, I'm
Okay.
yeah.
Well-
What are my clients gonna say? You know what I mean? Oh, sorry, I lost that entire record that was just about done. You know what I mean? So just make sure your data's backed up.
Yeah,
That's a
that
big
would
thing.
not be a fun conversation.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So clearly, it requires a lot of organization, a lot of organizational skills, I should say.
Yes.
Dedication, work ethic. Is there anything else that is required to become successful? Like what packages are you trying to put together? What skill sets are you trying to put together?
Don't be afraid to diversify and basically do as much as you can and try and create as many passive revenue streams as possible. So whether it be producing, engineering, songwriting, managing a studio, fixing gear for people, doing tech work for people, releasing music of your own, releasing music for artists, managing artists, that's all things that I am doing across the board at any given time, to just create a variety of different revenue streams and different longevity in those revenue streams, where things that there's no pension in what we do. So being a songwriter allows you to have stuff that will hopefully contribute to you for a long time and then be passed on to your kids.
Right.
So
Were you uncomfortable taking on one of those services more than others in your pursuit of growth? Like, did you not exactly
I was
want to do
uncomfortable.
it?
I was uncomfortable with all of them, but you just no. I mean, oh, you mean it from a standpoint of not wanting? No, there's none of those that I was like, I don't want to do that. Everything was I wanted to do it. I wanted to dabble in it. I wanted to release music with artists and and go through that all independently through different online distributors, through Spotify when it first started popping off, and getting music on there and having it do well. I really liked that. It was like, it's new learning, right? So you're constantly learning when you take on all these different roles. Would I like to produce records every day for the rest of my life? No. Would I like to produce records for the rest of my life? Yes. But I would like to do other things in there, and
Right.
go
That's a
on a
big difference.
month long writing, where I'm just writing with people for a month. I'm not worried about tracking and editing and doing all this. I'm just writing songs with people. That's great. But then you do that for a while. You're like, okay, I've been doing a bunch of 2-a-dayers for the last couple months or something, and then you're like, okay, now I want to focus on doing a record for a while, and just go and do that. And then you want to put music out. You want to do all these different collabs. So don't be afraid to diversify. And sorry, for me, none of them were really things were scary. Yeah. Writing songs with people, with a bunch of published writers. When I walked into my first writing camp, I was terrified. And we wrote a really great song out of that. So
It's only
at the end of the
natural to
day,
be
so-
terrified.
yeah, if you're not scared, you're not really taking any risks.
No. And and I use the word risk loosely in this situation, because really, like, our lives aren't at risk for doing these kinds of things. It's just a built up fear in our head.
Yeah.
And once
Totally.
we get out of that, literally you can do a lot more than you thought you could previously.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And it's just getting out of your head, for sure.
If you were able to visit your previous younger self to give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
Wow.
Don't go on this podcast, maybe.
Yeah, don't reply to the message. No. My younger self. I've thought about that a lot. I came from, not a great background, but or upbringing per se. No, I think that everything. I would just say, hang in there, and you'll eventually find what you love to do. Definitely go do a bunch of the wrong things that you did. Take the wrong education, and it'll lead you to where you want to be. So, because I think that's the biggest thing when I was getting into this, a lot of self-doubt and everything when you get in. So I would
Oh.
just get back and be like, hey, like, it's going to be all right. I know you don't know how you're going to eat this week or how you're going to pay rent or whatever, but you'll figure it out, and you do figure it out. And that's what I guess I would go back and tell myself, and also take music theory, you dumbass. That would be the other thing.
Fair. Because you said that, do you think you need to go to school to excel in the studio as a producer?
Not necessarily. I think it gets you a lot further ahead, and there's a lot of debates. I've worked at a recording school for a long time, and so I see the benefits in that. A lot of students. I also know some people that haven't gone to school that have done really well, but you need to learn somewhere. So you need to learn. So whether or not that's going to a school or spending all of your days on YouTube tutorial videos and buying pieces of gear and studying that, learning that, either way, you need to learn. So whether or not you go to a school to do that and learn hands-on from people there, or you do it yourself, you have to put in the work and you have to be willing to learn. At the end of the day, I'm grateful for where I went to school. Yes, was there issues with it? Oh yeah. There were, problems with facilities at times and things that we were not happy about, but I made so many great friends. Like, that's the thing that people don't realize. Like, oh, I'm paying a lot of money to go to school. You're also there with a bunch of other people paying a lot of money to go to school that are all creative, that are all similar mindsets of making art and making music. And you spend day in and day out with them for hours on end in the MIDI lab or wherever. And like, I wouldn't change that for the world. There's so many people that I'm still in contact with. I'm on this podcast because of someone I went to school with 13 years ago, something like that. Or we graduated 11 years ago. There he is, right? But like the Half Moon Run record, someone I went to school with. The lead singer, Deb, and I went to school. That's how that all came to be. So many opportunities from people that I went to school with and people that I still keep in touch with in the industry. So, I mean, there's definite pros to doing that. So I would say go for it if you really want to be around a lot of like-minded individuals. If you're driven to do music and you want to do that, definitely. If you can afford it and it makes sense for you, then go for it. I think it's a good move.
Interesting. It definitely does not hurt having more connections than less connections.
Totally. And that's all this business is networking and meeting people. And, obviously you have to be good at what you do, but you get that by doing your 10,000 hours, just putting the time in. But those connections that you make they'll be lifelong.
Yeah,
You know?
literally lifelong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry,
Awesome.
I burped there. Sorry about that.
I didn't even hear it.
Sound guy, edit that out.
I think he's asleep. Oh no, he's still there. He's still tuning in. Cool. Nygel, that brings us to the very end of this episode.
All right.
The air is
Cool.
now so fresh and so clean because you were very courteous enough to clear it for us. I hope you had a fantastic time. I know I did.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. One of my last questions was if you could give yourself, younger self advice, what would it be? But now I'm asking, do you want to leave all of our listeners with any other final words? And then also, where can they find you if you want to be found?
If I want to be nowhere. No. My last piece of advice. I don't know. Just get out there and make music and have fun doing it. If you're not having fun, then you're not going to want to do this for the rest of your life. So just make sure that you're always having fun and writing things that, you know, you don't always have to do serious songs, but think about what you're making and making something that you're passionate about, that you believe in, and the message behind it and things like that. There's so much great art out there, and just make sure you're a part of some of that good stuff. And also make those funny, cheesy pop songs, which I like to do too.
Why not? A couple never
Yeah.
hurt anyone.
And what was the second part of that question?
The second part was, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on the Instagram. It's NYG Productions. Same with Facebook. Or you can just add me on Facebook, Nygel Asselin. Yes, Ass is in my last name, Asselin.
You got a lot of booty.
Yeah, and you can also email me if you want it, Nygel at nygproductions.com. And yeah, just hit me up.
Beautiful.
Always down to collaborate. So
Fantabulastic. Thank you so much. Next, I want to thank our listeners. Thank you for tuning in. I really hope you did learn something today, because that's what we strive for. Shout out to our very own grumpy sound guy. We made it through another episode. Yeah. Thank you.
just on point with those sound effects.
I know he does something well. We keep him around for something. Shout out to Prevail Media Group, because you provide us with this beautiful venue and with an awesome team that makes this broadcast come to be. And then, of course, Nygel Asselin, thank you so much for being here. We really did appreciate your time. We out. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, then follow us on Instagram at go.produce. Check out our show notes, support us on Patreon, and help us grow this community. All of this and more can be found on our website at goproduce.ca. I am Big Lou, and I want to make sure that until next time, you go produce.